Welcome to Crawlspace. I'm Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing very well today, Tim. I am so sorry. In your voice, I can hear that you're not doing so well. Really, I gotta say, you're going above and beyond right now to do this intro for this episode. It is a fantastic episode, a doozy of a story. We have a gentleman on who is a remarkable person, has done so much in law enforcement, has done so much in his life, and is just such an amazing storyteller. There were so many times here where you and I were just like jaw on the floor. Couldn't believe what this guy has been through, and really most of the conversation is us being amazed at his tenacity and his dedication to his work. But Tim, I think it goes without saying how you're doing.
Well, yes, I'm feeling okay. Definitely a little under the weather. It's affecting my voice, but I couldn't be more excited to be here introducing this conversation with retired FBI Special Agent Scott Payne. And Scott went undercover for years investigating human traffickers, outlaw motorcycle gangs, a lot of crazy stuff, including America's Nazis. He goes undercover to expose some anti-Semites here in America and try to bring them to trial and prevent what violence they were planning. And so this is an incredible conversation. He has written a new book. It's called Codename Pale Horse. Gotta go get that. He's also the subject of a new podcast that has done a new season on him. The podcast is called White Hot Hate, and the new season is Agent Pale Horse.
And we'll have all of those links in the show notes. And just a quick word of advice. If you're a little bit squeamish, you might want to skip the story about the goat. And when I say the goat, I don't mean the greatest of all time. I mean the animal. It's a really tough story that he tells. And while it's remarkable and incredible insight into the lengths that people will go to make sure that the job is done on both sides of the law. But anyway, Tim, I want you to go into a very long and detailed explanation of the process, Scott. And I'm just kidding. We should really get you off the mic and get some hot tea and honey.
Thank you. I'm going to go listen to Scott's audiobook.
You should narrate it right now.
Might kind of sound like him.
All right, we're going to cut real quick to commercial, and we'll be right back with Scott Payne, codename Pale Horse. And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Welcome to the podcast, Scott Payne. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, buddy.
Thank you so much for joining us. Every once in a while, we have guests who come on who have got this incredible background, and they've balanced their lives between two worlds that I can't even wrap my head around, you know, being a part of each one of these worlds, let alone infiltrating and trying to negotiate and navigate your way through dangerous situations. But before we get into all of that, can you just introduce yourself to the listeners, let them know who you are and a bit about your background, where you're from, and what brings you to the show today?
Sure. That's a lot of questions.
I know. I know. I was so excited for this interview. I'm like firing on all cylinders right now.
Good. So me, born and raised in South Carolina, played college ball, bounced, and then I went into law enforcement. I was at the Greenville County Sheriff's Office for 5 years. 3 of them I was uniform patrol, and 2 of them I was vice and narcotics. So I was kind of already now getting that undercover bug and doing street level buys and whatnot. And then I got picked up by the FBI, and my first office was New York City. I was still assigned to the New York office when 9/11, the attacks happened. But on that day, I was actually undercover in San Antonio, Texas. But as soon as I could, I got on a commercial flight and flew back in and helped run a bunch of leads because I was already kind of in a transfer process. I went from New York City to the border of Mexico in McAllen, Texas, and I was there for 6.5 years. And then I got transferred to Tennessee, and that's where I retired. So I got 28 years total law enforcement. 5 at the sheriff's office and 23 with the FBI.
You said you got the undercover bug. Can you explain that a little bit more for us?
Well, I write the book, you do interviews, and you're always trying to think, did I always know I wanted to be an undercover? I'll say no to that, but I've always been a people person, and I've always loved connecting with all shapes, sizes, ethnic background, social status, doesn't matter to me. And that's one of the things I miss about the job, probably the thing I miss the most, other than flying armed. I do miss that. But At the sheriff's office, once I became a vice narcotics investigator, you can go and get certified through the state in undercover techniques. You can go do, technical surveillance and all kinds of stuff like that. I don't know. It's any movie, I don't care how cheesy it was. If it was about undercovers, I loved it. If it was a biker book, I loved it. If it was a biker undercover, I really loved it. And then when I got in the FBI, I knew I still wanted to do that. And I knew they had a pretty phenomenal undercover program, but that's about all I knew. I didn't know anything much past that. And then I got involved early on in the FBI, even though I wasn't certified through the undercover process, because you can get like a special agent in charge is usually the head of every field office. So an SAC, you can get SAC specific authority to work a case. And that's what I was kind of doing until I was afforded the opportunity to get a slot at our undercover certification school in the FBI. And I was blessed enough to pass and blessed enough to make a decent impression on certain people in the undercover program who started recruiting me and giving me work. And that's kind of how I made my name in the FBI undercover program.
You mentioned the undercover bug. You kind of caught that early on. I guess I'm just wondering, what is that? What's that feeling that makes you want to do that?
I respond off the fly, off the cuff. I don't have anything prepared. When you just asked me that, what I thought in my head was, it allows me to get to do a lot of things that I probably never get to do. I'm not going to go out. I mean, I'm a law enforcement officer. I'm not going to go break the law. That would be bad. There are those who do, and that's not good. Just the art of people. And again, there are guys and girls out there that have done way more undercover than me, done bigger cases, done more harrowing things. Some of them don't want to talk, and that's cool. But I've always been an instructor and a speaker, and even tactically, and that's kind of what I did. You get an adrenaline. I like to connect with people. I don't know. Infiltrating is, and for me personally, it was a good challenge, and I enjoyed it. No matter what the group may be. How can we figure out a way? And again, these are purported criminal groups that are already predicated through our law enforcement investigations. We may have reporting that they're dealing a bunch of dope. They may have been popped with some dope, and now we're trying to learn the whole enterprise and stuff like that. It could be something very fast, like somebody is a white supremacist and they want to bomb. So you got to do that one quick. I've always enjoyed that. It's an adrenaline rush too. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that are former special forces or current special forces, agents, different agencies that have done some crazy stuff. And at the end of the day, we're kind of adrenaline junkies. Most of us.
I think you also mentioned that through the FBI, you took a certification course to, oh my God, your mug is awesome. Anyone who's not watching this on YouTube, it simply says coffee. That's so fun.
I'm a simple man. This helps me remember. I'm not a smart man. It's late in the day. I'm like, what is in this? Coffee.
Oh, that's right. Coffee. Yeah. So you said that the FBI gave you, or you earned a certification through the FBI. Can you just expand on that a little bit? What are some of the qualifications that go into the certification that they ask you, or do you have to perform certain tasks?
All of the above. All of the above. I've got friends that are DEA agents, ATF, stuff like that, and I've met some unbelievable undercovers. For the most of what I've found out, they don't have a program like the FBI does. And I'm not being biased because I'm in the FBI, but in the FBI, you get certified. You have to go through, there's like 3 phases. So let's just say you're interested. Lance, say you're interested, and I'm the undercover coordinator, which I was for my division for a very long time. So say you come to me and you say, hey, Scott, man, I'm really interested in the undercover program. Well, I'm going to start that first phase, and we're going to start vetting you. We're going to start talking to you, and I'm going to ask you, what do you think undercover is? I'm going to ask you about your family life. I'm going to ask you about how long you've been in law enforcement, worldly experiences, stuff like that. Then you get to a phase where you go and get psychologically assessed, and then you might get some role play in there. What the school does is there's 20 slots. And it may have changed since I retired, but I don't think it has. You get 20 slots. There's 4 counselors for those 20 people. So you have 5 students per counselor for the whole 2 weeks, no days off. But they'll pick 40 because you got 20 as backups because there's only 20 slots. But if somebody falls out or for whatever reason, you've got the other 20 ready to go. And that's actually how I got mine. I was an alternate, and I got a call. I said, man, I wanted to do it. And then you go, it's a 2-week school. Again, no days off, huge on sleep deprivation. I'm not going to give tradecraft and all that stuff in the scenarios away. But the gist of it is you get training throughout the day, and then you're going to be going through scenarios. You're going to be a primary undercover at least twice a night through different scenarios. So that may mean you go and you're on day 3 or 4 with very little sleep. Your eating habits are all jacked up. You're not getting your gym time. Your schedule's all twisted. But we do that kind of like in the tactical world. We say, hey, we bleed on the range so we don't die in the street. In other words, we're running you through all kinds of drills, shooting drills, so it becomes instinctive. But at the UC school, it's a lot more of what ifs in your mind. And let's just say if you're making the same mistakes on Friday that you made on Monday, it's probably not good. Sleep deprivation I have seen bring to the surface people's weaknesses that they may not even known they had. I've seen people like nut out. And when I say nut out, I mean, as a minor in psychology, nut out. It's just that, it's tough. Some people, they lose reality. And again, I mean, I've had friends that I was on SWAT with, but I never saw them in like an undercover capacity or just like outside of SWAT and work. And then they're squared away. They're awesome tactical operators and case agents, but they're just not cut out for undercover work. So, yeah, and that's the certification process. And if you make it through that process and you get the certification, well, now you got to start trying to find work. It's all voluntary. You can't be told as an FBI agent, they can't make you work an undercover. They can't make you complete an undercover. It's all voluntary.
So you could start an undercover job for the FBI. You volunteer for it. They give you resources. Do they give you anything to help you like complete your character, or is that on you?
Well, a little of both, but yes, you can. Ultimately, your backstory is on you. No matter if anybody prepares it for you or not, you should be checking it yourself. For instance, let's say I asked for a covert weapon, and it's supposed to be covert, but I never ran it. And then you find out a year in the case that it was not actually a covert weapon. If anybody ran that serial number, it comes back to FBI Quantico. And you're like, what? I mean, it's in your title. You are the covert weapons unit. How do you not have a covert weapon? But it's on you. But yeah, I can't give away tradecraft, but we have all kinds of things to give you your backstop and things that you can't get at a state and local level, generally speaking, because you got to look real. You got to look real, but it's always a cat and mouse game. You know, that kind of, you get the next radar detector and we come out with a new speed gun to it's just always going back and forth. And in today's world with facial recognition and stuff, it's just getting harder and harder, especially if your targets are smart. Of course, there's a difference in being in the backwoods with maybe a toothless mountain person who's a dope dealer. Don't underestimate them, as I did and broke my own rule. And you find out that they're actually very street smart and they put you in a corner and you're like, dang, I can't believe I let this person do this to me. Versus maybe you're working a Chinese intelligence officer. Well, they're going to have a lot more access, to background searches and stuff like that.
So you mentioned white supremacy groups, and I know from your new podcast and book, codename Pale Horse, that both projects are at least partially about infiltrating these types of groups. Can you tell me why those types of groups are the ones that you targeted?
Okay. I think the easiest way to answer it is a lot of your domestic terrorism type stuff is First Amendment protected. In other words, and I do interviews with overseas, Canada, London, and Australia, and I have to explain in the States, we have a constitution and you've got a First Amendment protection. So you can walk out in the street and say you hate, and you I'm saying, you just go out there and scream, I hate all, insert racial slur. I hope all, insert racial slur dies. That's not against the law. That's First Amendment protected. But if you start doing things, or maybe we are getting reporting that you are planning on breaking laws, furthering an ideology and hurting people and committing crimes, then yeah, we're going to start looking at you. It might even be strictly from a intelligence purposes. But what I'm trying to say is we're not just going to go out there and just start investigating you. There's going to be something. There's going to be a logical investigation that's been done. It could be a case team that's been working on this case for a year and a half. It could be somebody covertly acting online, and they're in a chat group like Telegram or Wire or Riot or Threema or any of the other ones, Discord, stuff like that. And they're going back and forth with you, and now they're DMing you, and they think you're somewhat of a white supremacist or for that cause, or you could be a radical jihadist, or you could be black separatist, whatever, just on the extreme side. And now you, like I'm on the undercover, and then you come in and go, hey, man, yeah, white power, this, that, and the other. Hey, you think you can get me a bomb? Well, now we're like, oh, we got to go. So, but targeting the certain groups that are in the book that I'm talking about. I mean, there was one that was a Ku Klux Klan case. There was a report of certain members, several reports of members building ghost guns, selling firearms illegally, being felons in possession of weapons, which is that's a good slam dunk case. I mean, if you're a felon and you got a weapon and it's operable, and you get a count for every bullet you got. If you ask for 30 bullets, that's 30 counts. But the big group that is in the book that got so much coverage worldwide was a group called the Base. And when people hear like white supremacy, most people, and even in law enforcement, they think Ku Klux Klan, white hood, robe, cross on fire, or they might think Aryan Nation. You're out there, or anything from Charlottesville, right? You're out there, white power, picketing, walking up and down. And that's what they're kind of picturing. The groups like the Base are called accelerationists. They have gone way further in ideology, and they're not about being out there protesting in front of everybody. They're about guerrilla warfare tactics and attacking the grid and people from behind. And I'll tell you what an accelerationist believes, and I learned this by infiltrating them. An accelerationist doesn't believe that there's a political solution to save the white race. They believe that society is going to collapse on its own or from man-made events, and they want to speed it up. Hence, that's why they're called, they want to accelerate it. So they're accelerationists. They go off of a book called Siege. They call it Siege Culture, and that book was written by James Mason, longtime white supremacist who created Atomwaffen, an accelerationist group. And some people think the Base was like a splinter off of Atomwaffen. It was more like an umbrella group. Like pretty much everybody I met through being a member of the Base, they were members of other white supremacy groups as well. I mean, some of them were members of Atomwaffen. So you start hearing all this radical online stuff, and it's like it's drawing attention. Or maybe our world working partners, maybe overseas, they're like, hey, FBI, United States, we've got people over here that are members of this group called the Base. We've done this, this, and this, but it looks like everything's in America. Are you guys doing anything with it? And we all start working together, and that's how they came on. They came on the radar for us. The Base did.
Is it sort of easy for you to perform this like really intense method acting? Because you have to be sort of a method actor, right? If you're going into these situations and pretending to be one thing that you're probably not, and learning all of these new ideologies and digging in as deep as possible to a group like the Base, like how do you separate your real feelings with what you have to pretend to be?
I will say it got easier the older and longer in the tooth I got in the job. I've been these aliases, you kind of know, but for me personally, the way I was trained and the way I trained and the way I did it was I never was far from what I really am. Now, does that mean I'm a white supremacist? No, but I'm Scott. I'm the jovial country guy, big country, medium country, whatever you want to call me, just plain country, little country. I don't know. Depends on where I'm standing, I guess. But I'm never far from what I really am. So I'm the same jovial guy. The jokes are the same, but I may or may not have played football. I may or may not have went to college. I may or may not be a musician, a singer. I may or may not be married and have kids, but you can bet I'll probably lift weights and I'll probably ride motorcycles. At least I did at one point. The only time I really changed that, I would personally, is if I had like what I call like a murder for hire, or what I call a closer, which, for instance, there was a white supremacist in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and he wanted to shoot up a synagogue. He wanted to murder a bunch of Jewish people. He knew the synagogue. He picked it. He knew they had a family day coming up, but he didn't have anything else really after that, except I got hard. I want to do it. He asked me if I could provide him with a weapon. For those kind of things, I don't, they're quicker, and I never really tried to build rapport because, I mean, let's look at the situation. If you're hiring me to kill somebody, are we going to be friends, or am I just going to do the job and go? Method acting, maybe a little. Some people do. I just didn't. My name's Scott. It was a common name, so I was always Scott, no matter what. But different last names. But, if my name was like, I don't know, Gaston or something, maybe I would change it on my undercover name, But Yeah, I pretty much say the same. And I ask that question, either whether I'm teaching or speaking to civilians or law enforcement, what do you think undercover is? And a lot of times you'll get, oh, it's acting. Okay. Or you're lying. Okay. You're pretending to be something you're not. Okay. The real definition of undercover work is you are forming relationships that you're going to betray. And that sucks. Especially the longer in you are. You may have a chance to bond with somebody. You're creating friendships. If they are breaking the law and you gather evidence of that, you're going to have to arrest them. They're going to have to go down. So you need to figure out in your mind how you're going to do that and it not have an adverse impact on your psyche. Kind of like going back to the UC school. If I'm on a regular work week, I get up about the same time every day. I eat about the same time every day. I work out, and you probably even use the bathroom about the same time every day. But can you take that, flip it upside down, sideways, not get your square meals, not get sleep for several days, and you be able to function, especially as an undercover? Because remember, we're running recorders. So if I'm drinking all night and the recording just has me slurring all over the place, drunk off my you-know-what, is that going to play well in front of a jury? Absolutely not. So you got to be on your P's and Q's.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
Right, and I imagine that you do form some pretty deep bonds with some of the people that you have to betray. What is that like? How do you know when the moment comes to execute that betrayal?
Well, that's not just my decision. Actually, really, it's not my decision at all because I'm just the undercover. It's a case team decision. It's a United States attorney's decision. It could be a management decision. In my opinion, because I was a case agent too, I wasn't just an undercover. I was a case agent first. Until the day the FBI says you're full-time undercover or you're full-time SWAT or you're a full-time firearms instructor. You got to be a case agent. But I will tell you, one of the hardest things on long-term cases is decide when to pull the chocks, when to stop. Because as an undercover or as the case agent, so many times you're like, hey, man, we're pretty much wrapped up. We got everything we want, but one more meet and maybe we can get this guy or this girl. Or somebody pops out of prison and they want to start talking to you about dope and doing a bunch of dirty stuff. And you're like, well, let's try to wrap them in too, kind of thing. It's tough. And I will say for me personally, I have bonded with people, some like really, really close. And it sucks. It sucks when when the last words I spoke to somebody who now don't get me wrong, they did not know I was Scott Payne, the FBI agent, but they love me. And Scott Calloway, who I was, loved them too. And then the last words we ever spoke to each other was him telling me that two of my truck drivers had been arrested, which it was part of a reversal and a takedown of the case. And he didn't know that he was getting ready to be hit by a SWAT team in less than 45 minutes, but he called me to let me know. And his last words to me were, I love you, brother. And my last words to him were, I love you too. And that's the last time we spoke.
Does he know that it was you at this point?
Well, yeah. Now I'm overt. They might not know my name was Scott Payne. In the early days of the FBI, we put our name and then started wising up. And it's like, okay, maybe you just say you're an undercover and you don't put your name. But then they started giving us like symbol numbers. So I might be UCE undercover employee. I might be UCE 1001. And that's who I am through the entire case. But as far as the case goes, remember, most of my stuff was criminal. There's like one classified case. And the way the criminal system works, a lot of people, not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but a lot of people don't know, we're going to make that arrest. Now, I may get arrested with you. You may not know at that time, but at some point, you're going to be sitting down with the defense attorney, your defense attorney, and we're going to be sitting down with an assistant United States attorney at the FBI federal level, and you're going to get what's called discovery. And discovery is supposed to be everything. Now, there have been FBI people that did not give everything, and they were very high up, and we all continue to pay the price for that stuff. But that's a whole sidebar. But discovery, you're supposed to get everything. My notes, text messages, everything, every recording ever made. So eventually you're going to get that, and you're going to hear my preamble. You're going to hear me saying, hey, this is UCE 3415. It's approximately 4:28 p.m., March 11th, 2025, Eastern time. I'm going to be going in to meet Tim and Lance. And then they're going to know. They're going to know that Scott, whoever I was, they're going to know I was the undercover.
In the podcast, there was a moment where you were, I think this was before you had focused on the FBI and church. I know that church is a big part of your life as well, religion, or faith, I should say. There was a part where you mentioned that you saw a demon. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I laugh now, as I do about a lot of things. And then when you're writing the book, they go, "Yeah, you're funny and all, but I mean, what did you really feel like?" And I go, "Oh, I was scared to death," And they're like, "Oh, tell us about that scary part." Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian family, Christ followers, as we say now. Good correction on the religion versus faith. For a lot of those out there, I grew up in a Christian family. My first 7 years was at a Christian school. Somewhere in that teenager's years, looking back on it, I see what happened. But of course, at the time you're young, you don't realize what's going on. But my parents had gotten a divorce. It kind of gave me an I don't care attitude. Like, hey man, are you okay with this? Yeah, I don't care. But that I don't care kind of started going into everything I did. And I had some friends, air quotations, that introduced me into witchcraft and devil worshiping or satanic worship, however you want to say it. I was diving deep into it, young, lost kid. I got to the point to where I was losing all my friends. And I mean, these guys are still my friends today. Like the high school group we had, the only thing we can figure is, well, number one, things were different in the 80s. Because of everything we went through as a group of friends, we're still tight. We get together 2-3 times a year. But I was losing all those friends because I was doing like a devil voice, a demon voice, kind of like a Freddy Krueger mixed with something else back in the day. And I went to like whatever the movie rental place is. I mean, they don't even really have them anymore. You just hit a button online, but which cracks me up when you still get DVDs in in the mail. I'm like, I don't even have a DVD player. But I went from A to Z in the horror section. I watched every movie, and I don't even really like horror movies as a grown person. I love suspense movies, but gore and stuff, I don't know. It's probably because of what I did for a living and the way my mind works. But I watched all of them, and I started doing something. And one night we had been drinking, and that's it. No roofies, nothing that crazy, no drugs involved. And my friends, like I said, I was losing them. I was in a real dark place. Like I had a Volkswagen Beetle, oddly enough, 6'4". I'm like 6'4", 260 now, but I was a big kid. The only place in town in South Carolina that would work on the VWs was a Christian shop. Well, I would take like, I don't know, Halloween or Grim Reaper or something, the most satanic thing you could find back then. And I would set the tape right to the part to where the demon's talking, just to be a complete ass. And when they cranked up the car, it was going to be loud, and they were going to hear, because it's a cassette and it's going to start right there. I was doing stuff like that, and it's not cool. But one night we had been drinking, and I was playing out a scene, kind of like acting it out, that I'd seen in a movie where it was demon possession, like a demon's fighting and trying to take over the person, and the person screaming no, and you're going back and forth in your voices. And when I rolled over, I started laughing like the demon because the demon won. And as I rolled over and looked, again, not even really drunk, just, I rolled over and I saw like a watery red image. Like if you look in the water, if there's ripples going through it, that kind of wavy look, red. And it was a demon looking at me, smiling with some long ass fingernails, and just looking at me, smiling and basically telling me to come here. And I screamed from the top of my lungs, probably the highest I've screamed. And from, like a couch to a light switch that I could probably reach. From that moment, I was as white as a sheet. I was pouring sweat. I was panting. And my buddy, who had warned me about the stuff, who's still one of my very good friends today, he sits up and he's like, "Man, what the hell?" And I'm like, "Look, here's the deal. If I ever do that again, you got my permission, take a bat, crack me across the head with it." And he just looked at me, he got this this calming peace about him, like it wasn't even him. And he looked at me and he said, like he knew what I saw. And he said, "I told you, didn't I?" And I didn't go to sleep. I stayed up all night. I walked. I guess I took a ride over to where the house was at, but I walked to the church I knew of. I don't know how many miles it was, but I didn't go to sleep. I walked to church, and that was that. That was that for devil worshiping.
Wow, that is incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That part certainly got my attention. Not that the rest of it doesn't, but I was kind of shocked to hear that part. But that's a really incredible story. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
It happened. That's the way I saw it. And my buddy remembers it too. Ricky would tell you, he'd be like, "Yep, I told him, I told you, didn't I?"
Wow.
And that was that.
So what about, like, how close did you get to blowing your cover while you infiltrated the base?
I was going to say which time, but you say the base. That's good. I love the test when you go in undercover and the bad guy says, "If you a cop, you got to tell me." are you the police? And I go, hell no. Are you? And they go, no. And that's it. And I go, well, that was easy. I can do that. That's a good test. The base, what happened with them is I started going in. Again, we're getting all these notifications or contacts reaching out to us, world working groups with our world partners and law enforcement. I went in cold because the base was actively recruiting through Gab and Telegram and stuff like that. So I went into Gab. I don't even know if it's still active anymore. They had like different groups you could join. So I joined 14 Words, which is completely white supremacy because that's the David Lane 14 Words. And then whites only, I wonder what's in there, so you join that group and you start seeing the base posting, trying to recruit people. And at the bottom, they always had an email. It was thebase_1@protonmail.com. So I started answering that. Well, after a week of going back and forth with them asking me questions and me answering them, they told me to download the Wire app, which is kind of similar to like WhatsApp. You can actually talk if you want to, They told me to download that, and I did probably about an hour and 15-minute 4 or 5 person interview panel to join the base. Once I was done, they told me, the leader told me, he goes, hey, man, I'm going to give you 24 hours, a 24-hour, period. That way, now that you know what we're about, you can think whether you want to be a part of us or not. And it'll give us a chance to talk about what we think about you and whether or not we want you to be a part of us or not. So true to his word, 24 hours later, I got the acceptance. Hey, we'd love to have you. And I was like, consider it an honor. So he says, where are you at? And I said, East Tennessee. And then he's like, well, the closest cell, and I got a redneck accent, so CELL, cell, to you is in North Georgia. He said, you'll be contacted by the cell leader. And I was contacted by a guy that went by the moniker, the Militant Buddhist, TMB. His real name is Luke Lane. They told me to come down to Rome, Georgia and come meet them. And I went down there and I meet a case team that I'd never met in person before because, you got FBIs everywhere. And so they're working the case out of the Atlanta division. So I go down, meet the case team, go over a few things about what's possibly going to happen that day. And they put a tracker on my truck because we didn't know where I was going. We didn't know anything really about the people we were meeting at that point. So, of course, they don't want to lose me, and I don't want them to lose me either, So I'd been instructed where to park, take a picture of a statue that was in downtown Rome, Georgia, send it to TMB, let them know when I'd park there. I mean, it was all like, of course, they're watching me. They're giving me directions on where to drive, where to park. And I couldn't find a parking space because where they wanted me to park. And I found one up on a hill behind like a coffee shop. So I let them know where I was at. And they go, okay, I see you. So they come walking up. And I see TMB and another guy with him who ended up being at that point in time a 19-year-old named moniker was Pestilence. And his real name is Jacob Caterly. And they come walking up and kind of sizing me up. You know what I mean? You're going to get checked. So he's like, hey, put your phone on airplane mode. I'm like, cool. And then he pulls out something I'd never seen before. And maybe it was common to a lot of people, but it wasn't common to me. And it looked like a Geiger counter or something. I'm like, dude, this thing, it was like a big box with all kinds of lights all over it, a triangle card in it. And I'm looking going, what in the hell is that? And he wands me, cool, wand me, have at it. Then he starts going around my truck. And as he starts getting to the back of my truck, which is where the case team put the tracker, that thing starts going nuts. It starts beeping and making all kinds of racket and lighting up. And I'm watching it and I'm going, holy crap, it's picking up the tracker. I even eased my right leg back. I don't know if they saw it or not, but I'm preparing. I'm like, this is going to be a brawl. And as he's getting really close, Pestilence says, do you think it's the power lines? Because we were on a hill and where we were parked, the power lines were kind of low right there. So he stops, walks over to the power lines, and it goes ballistic. Because what we found out, the FBI bought one just like it. It's a $500 piece of equipment. It picks up any wave you can think of. Wi-Fi, cellular, Bluetooth, you name it, it picks it up, RF, whatever. And it's got a different sound for each one and a different color for each one. Pretty awesome piece of equipment. So he says, F yeah, man, it's the damn power lines. At that point, I was White Warrior. I changed it to Pale Horse once I was in. He's like, hey, Warrior, hop in the truck, follow us. And then that's when I'm like, okay, I'm on the phone with the case team that I just met, for probably 30 minutes. And I'm like, look, man, you guys got to shut the tracker off. Whatever he's got is fine in the tracker. We were kind of going back and forth, not like argumentative, but it's more like they probably had the tech person with them and they were like, man, I'm not sure we can shut it off remotely. And if we do, I'm not sure we can cut it back on. And again, there's the worry of where the hell am I going? What if surveillance loses me? Cloud cover was coming in, so any kind of aerial surveillance was out. And I told him, I'm like, man, you need to shut it off, or this is going to be probably the quickest undercover I've ever done. I mean, you can do buy bust on the street and local level, which it might be you walk up, hand the money, everybody rushes in, a buy bust or something like that. But we pulled into, I'm saying it was abandoned. I didn't see any cars, but it's like a concrete plant, no cars. And of course, my faith, I kind of look up to the heavens and go, nice. That's a funny sense of humor you got there. How many movies have I seen where people die in an abandoned concrete plant, We pull in and I'm like, I hope they shut it off. I'm about to find out. He comes over, he wands the truck and everything's cool. And he comes over and wands me again. And here I am in the middle of a parking lot, my arms wide open, like Creed, right? Arms wide open. And man, it just starts pissing rain. I mean, the bottom of the sky drops out and I'm like, oh, man, just drenched. It was like a flash dance scene or something. I'm telling my age. Probably half the people don't even know what flash dance is, but water being dropped on you in a dancing scene. How's that?
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
Holy crap. I mean, how do you start to work your head around what might happen when that starts going off? You said that you took a step back so that you'd be prepared in case there'd be a brawl, but I mean, these are probably armed individuals, right?
Probably. I mean, I didn't see a weapon when they walked up, but knowing what I learned about them and who they are, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Just by some miracle, they're like, okay, it could be the power line. So now we have to take him to a place that doesn't have power lines. Some miracle happens where they realize that has to happen, and you get back in your truck, and how do you even dial your phone? Like, how do you call back in?
Well, I was hiding everything because, again, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to get all crazy like some super action movie. Do they have 400 people watching me? I'm not thinking that, but I don't know what they've got. I don't know if they've got other people watching. So I'm keeping the phone down while I'm driving in my lap, and I'm like, hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. And then I've got my drink. So I'm driving, and here's me. I got to go like this, and I'm like, hey, man, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. You need to cut that thing off. Kind of that kind of thing. Plus, I'm watching them to see if they're if their head's on a swivel looking everywhere. But yeah, you start trying to get your heart rate back down. And again, you train so many years in the tactical world. Like I said, you bleed on the range so you don't die on the street. Man, we'll run you through drill after drill after drill to where it becomes instinctive. I can show you video after video of shootouts, and the cop has no idea how many rounds they shot. They have no idea that they did an effective magazine exchange behind cover. But they did all that because they trained until it became instinctive. So even though they're having that oh crap moment where your auditory exclusion kicks in, your time dilation kicks in for what you're seeing, your hamstrings are rubbery, you feel your heart beating in your foot kind of thing, you're doing what you trained to do. In the undercover world, you have to do those with what ifs, or you can go back to the undercover school and role play. I mean, it gives you some good reps, kind of be on the fly and listen. You got to be always trying to gather intelligence, actionable intelligence, like, hey, man, or, we call it active listening. Like, even though I'm talking to you, I'm kind of picking up what they're saying over here. One thing that I saw a lot of people get kicked out of the undercover school for is the failure to see that a situation is deteriorating and get out of it. I've had situations where the situation was deteriorating, but then one thing happens, and after that, everything's like, and the bad guys are like, oh, man, we're good now. All right, come on back in the back. Let me show you where all the dope's at. You're always looking and always listening. But you try to be as prepared as you can, and hopefully the case team that you're working for or case agent has done their homework, and they've got all kinds of intelligence. Again, the more you know about who you're approaching, then the better I can set myself up for success and not failure.
So I imagine you don't have your contacts at the FBI in your phone as like Bob, FBI agent. So how do you protect yourself like that? If they were to say, like, show me I saw you in the car talking, were you on the phone? Show me your phone.
Well, my first response is, who am I infiltrating and how well do they know me? Because I might just tell them to kiss my ass, No. You show me your phone and I'll show you mine. We don't know each other that well yet. But no, I mean, if you're going to be an undercover, you don't need to have anything like that. That's just bad operational security. When I would get out of my vehicle at the airport in McAllen, Texas, when I was stationed there for 6.5 years, When I got out of that vehicle, there was nothing on me back then that was Scott Payne. That's changed over the years because of things with traveling and stuff. But when you're going to go undercover, I don't care if it's a quick buy. It's just you shouldn't have anything. Because, again, Murphy's Law, or if you got my kind of luck, what if you got a jacket that you picked up from the dry cleaners and you didn't clean it, and on the inside there's a receipt for Scott Payne, not Scott Calloway? What if I've got my medication with me and it says Scott Payne on it, or a plane ticket? It's just, I would not suggest doing that at all. Even if it was just a street level buy bus, we call it cleaning ourselves kind of thing. I'll have somebody check my vehicle and then I'll check it after them just to make sure.
Can you tell us about the time that you were made to drink goat blood?
Ah, yes, that would be the base. We'll just stay on the base. Most of the people that I met in and through the base were pagans, or they claim to be pagans. I've got great friends, unbelievable friends, and they're pagans. That's what they practice. Great people, not judging them at all, right? But much like white supremacy with Christian identity, which is something that they actually, the belief system they got, they'll take the Bible and twist the living hell out of it to make it something they believe, like Jesus is a white guy, not Jewish, kind of thing, and stuff like that. The base and those people wanting to do like the pagan stuff were kind of twisting it, and there's a lot of practicing pagans that are pissed about it too, as they should be, because it's giving them a bad name. But with that being said, you started seeing this whole influx of like paganism, like you got pantheons. Most people that I met were like Norse pantheon. So you're going to have your Odin. Just watch the Avengers. It'll give you a whole lot, right? Odin, Thor, watch the Vikings, Ragnar, all that good stuff. Then there's others that have like the Egyptian pantheon, and they might be more dark or whatever. But they had twisted it. I'd been in, I don't know how long I'd been in, but we did it's basically a hate camp. There's probably like 13 of us from all over the country that came into Rome, Georgia for like 3 or 4 days around Halloween. We started it on Halloween of 2019. It was kind of mentioned in the chat groups that there may be a sacrifice. And I'm like, I'm thinking like chicken, something, I don't know, bird or something. We're also doing kind of like tactical training. Or any kind of training, survival training, where there's hand-to-hand combat, living off the land, building like a fortress kind of thing or a place to stay, and shooting and tactics. So we did that, and then it really got the temperature changed big that day. It dropped like over 40 degrees. It hadn't been that cold all year, so it's kind of shocking to the system. I remember going back to my truck, pouring rain again, freezing. Now it's ice. I'm charging my phone, and you get that heat hitting you in the truck after you've had a couple, and now you're defrost, you're thawing out. And I fell asleep for a little bit, and I woke up to the sound of them banging on my window. And by that time, I was pale horse. They're like, pale horse, pale horse. I'm like waking up going, what, man? They go, man, you got to see this. You got to see this. So I get out, and they have gone and stolen a ram. I've talked goat, ram. I don't know much of the difference. I've talked to goat owners, ram owners, and I still don't have it down. But it has horns, and it was kind of big. And so they kidnapped this ram, stole it. And I'm like, okay. So I walk up, and it's in the back of one of the members' trucks. And another member who went by Dima, he said, man, this thing's shitting all over the place, because it was just dropping poop all over the back of the truck. And I'm like, well, hell, I'm still joking. I'm like, well, I would be too if a bunch of Neanderthals with Flecktarn camo and balaclavas came up and ripped me out of a backyard with machine guns. I remember talking to Eisen. He was going to be leading the block that night, and he's like, oh, talking lovely to the ram, and he even named it Gar. He named it Gar because his middle name was Garfield after his grandfather, so he named the ram Gar. And I told him, I said, man, is it bad that I feel kind of sorry for the goat? And he's like, man, you don't need to let that goat hear you. The ram doesn't need to hear you say that. Gar doesn't need to hear you say that, because we're showing this animal love. This animal is happy. We need to let this animal know that it's going to Valhalla as a sacrifice to Odin. And I'm like, all right, I wonder what the goat thinks. So it looks like we're going to do it. And I walk over to my truck, and I had some transmitter devices and whatnot. And I lean into my truck, and I'm talking to the team. I'm hoping they're listening. And I'm like, hey, if y'all can hear me, I'm pretty sure we're getting ready to go sacrifice this ram. They stole it. So yeah, there's a theft there, but are we on a federal level of crimes? No. Are we, is it animal cruelty? I don't know yet. How many people hunt kill something and then eat it, So I got nothing. I waited, and I'm like, okay, no. I said, if y'all don't want me to do this, give me a sign, give me something, if you want me to shut it down. And I got nothing. So I leaned in and I went, well, looks like we're going to go kill this thing, I guess, or sacrifice it. So we go down deep in the woods to the little holy area where we would do our blots. Eisen is leading it. And what he says is we're going to do the wild hunt. And in the Norse mythology, wild hunt is basically when Odin and a bunch of other gods go out and just basically kick the crap out of all their enemies. But in the twisted version, in the white supremacy realm, the wild hunt means we are starting the wild hunt. This sacrifice is to Odin to start the wild hunt, but the wild hunt is cleansing the world of non-whites. So we get to that point. We're all in a circle. I'm not sure. I'm not a smart guy, I guess, but I ended up at the back of the ram holding his legs, and Eisen has like a machete, something like a machete. And he's rearing back with the sword and taking a practice swing. And he's a pretty stocky kid, and somebody says, just do it, man. He's like, well, it might take 2 swings. And somebody says, just do it. He rears back as hard as he can and comes down with that blade and thump. You hear this loud thump. And again, I'm holding the ram. You hear this loud boom, and then you hear the ram go, bah. It didn't. I don't even think it broke a hair on the back of it. I don't know if the knife was dull. I don't know if it's because the back strap of a goat is so thick, but nothing happened. And I remember going, oh, no. It's very fast, but it seems like it's forever. But I remember thinking in my head, like in a movie, like just seeing the scene, and I'm like, this is going to get bloody. I'm just picturing him being mad and just start chopping stuff. And that didn't happen. And then somebody says, hey, does anybody have a pistol? Well, this is the shocker to a lot of us because the rule was we're not bringing any weapons down to the holy spot. Well, one guy did. He broke the rule, and he was the one guy out of the entire group who was probably the worst person to have a pistol in their hand. So even Luke and myself, we were like, what? What do you got a gun for? So they get the gun, they hand it to Eisen, and Eisen's getting ready to shoot. He chambers around, and he's getting ready to shoot the goat in the head. And then he totally looks away. He just turns the opposite way. He doesn't even know what he's pointing at. And that's when the instructor kind of comes out. I mean, I'm like, whoa. And he's like, I go, man, look at what you're shooting. I mean, we're all in a daggum circle. You're going to shoot one of us. So he looks, puts it right next to his head, pops one. It hits the ground. It's kicking for a while. And then I even said, I think it might still be alive. He goes, oh, no, it's dead. And I go, well, we don't want it to show up in the Valhalla all upset, right? I mean, this is supposed to be a loving sacrifice to Odin. Maybe put another bullet in it. And then he put another one in it and it stopped moving. And in fact, you can hear on the recording when somebody goes, after he shoots, he goes, oh, it's definitely dead now. Well, then they commence to cut in his throat and they fill up this glass with with the blood. And everybody's in a circle still and they're all dropping down on the knee. And Eisen has brought acid, a sheet of acid, and he's tearing off hits. Not everybody did it. Of course I didn't. I mean, the majority did. So they're going around in the circle and he's placing the tab under the tongue and then they're drinking the blood. That's part of the sacrifice. So by the time it gets to me, like I look down in the cup and this blood's already coagulating. It's all like clotty and chunky, like old egg yolks. And I'm looking down at it going, man, I don't think I can turn this up. I really don't want to turn it up. Whether I can or not, it doesn't really matter. I don't want to be part of the sacrifice. I just took my finger and stuck it all down in the blood, pulled it out, sucked all the blood off. And then luckily I'd carried a beer down there. So I chased it with a beer. But yeah, and then they commenced to cutting his head off, trying to cook the meat over the next couple of days. That was like a 3 or 4 day training, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we headed out Sunday. And there's pictures of us. I mean, they made it all over the world news and BBC and everything else of us holding the goat head and carrying it around for the whole weekend.
That's an incredible story.
God.
Yeah.
How do you decompress from that?
Well, that particular one, so you do that, and the next day of training is completely shot because everybody's still high on acid. So Saturday we roll back into training, and Saturday night we had another little ceremony, and at that ceremony we did a bonfire and burnt holy Bibles and burnt the American flag while screaming "F your Jewish God" and F America and all Jews must die and all kinds of hateful rhetoric. But I'll tell you, when I came back from that weekend, maybe it's being rained on for 4 days, not sleeping good, eating nasty goat that's not meant for eating. I was a little shell shocked. I was rocked on that one. I reached out to my pastor at the time and said, "Hey, if you don't mind, say a little prayer over me, you know." Not necessarily like a scene from a movie where I'm trying to jump in the shower and scrub it all off of me, crying kind of thing. But I felt pretty. It wasn't cool. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. It's playing over and over in your head. So must have been a good peace of mind to have your pastor at least give you some sort of like comfort in that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a jovial guy, and what I said like the next week after that happened. So let's just say November of 2019. I'm like, look, man, I've been doing undercover work off and on since 1996, starting at the sheriff's office. And I'm like, I have never had to burn Bibles. I have never had to burn American flags. And I damn sure wasn't with a group of people that stole a goat, sacrificed it at a pagan ritual, and then drank its blood and carried his head around for 4 days. I said, I've done that in 3 days with these guys, 3 or 4 days with these guys. And I'm like, a lot of hate in there. But yeah, it was a weird weekend. I did not see that in the forecast.
It wasn't on your bingo card, your life bingo card.
Not at all.
Well, Scott, I think we could fire questions at you for certainly multiple hours here. Would love to invite you back for a second conversation at some point soon.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I know your book and the podcast are set to be released in the next couple weeks. Is there some place specific that you like to tell people to get your book?
I mean, you can type in codename Pale Horse. A lot of people can't remember that. If you type in FBI Undercover Scott, that'll probably pop right up. And then, I mean, I've got an Instagram and an X account and LinkedIn. That's about it. Simon & Schuster, I mean, it's on their website, and it comes out the 25th of this month. And I think the podcast from CBC in Canada will be released then too. It's going to be a spinoff of White Hot Hate, which is kind of a cool story in itself. My co-writer is Michelle Shepard. She's a journalist, a Canadian journalist. She's done all kinds of stuff. She had actually did a 6-episode podcast called White Hot Hate, and it was all on the base because one of our members in the base was a Canadian who absconded illegally from Canada into the United States after he was kind of found out for being a white supremacist. So I'd already heard of that. And it just so happens that while we were interviewing possible writers, she ended up being one of them, and they ended up doing a spinoff on that. So it's I think it's pretty cool because they actually interview family members. They interview some of my best friends growing up. They interview other undercovers that knew me when I came in the program and when I left and retired. Task force officers who were worked cases. So it's done very well, I think.
Yeah, it really, really is. And White Hot Hate is an exceptional production. So really cool that you ended up being like in good hands like that with your story, because seriously, like it's been over an hour and Tim said we could go on for another couple of hours. I can't wait to have you come back on.
Absolutely.
To talk about more of this.
I've been blessed. That's what, you say it's great that I've just been blessed. I mean, for me and my belief system, it's divine intervention. There are haters out there, and I used to let it upset my stomach and tear me up every day. And then one day I woke up and I did the Taylor Swift, man. I said, haters are going to hate. I'm just going to shake it off. So I don't know what else you want me to tell you. My bad. I'm sorry.
No, a good Taylor Swift reference is always welcome here.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I had daughters, man. So, it's that's the first big concert they went to. I took them to see Taylor Swift,
Gotcha. Yeah, I've got a couple of daughters myself. We'd hate for you to drink any more bad blood.
That's a good one.
Well played on so many levels there.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been a great conversation. We look forward to the next one.
Thank you for having me on, guys.